Remember, the first rule of Fight Club is cardio. Zombieland is directed by Ruben Fleischer, written by Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick, and stars Jesse Eisenberg, Woody Harrelson, Emma Stone, and Abigail Breslin. And Zombieland is pretty much a story about four people who end up having to stick together after a zombie apocalypse ravages America. So you've got Jesse Eisenberg's character who's just trying to get to Columbus, Ohio to check if his family is still alive, but he's just pretty much scared of everything. Then you have Woody Harrelson's character who's trying to get to Tallahassee, and all he wants to do on the way there is, get revenge on zombies and possibly find the last Twinkie in America. And Emma Stone and Abigail Breslin play two sisters who are eventually given the names Wichita and Little Rock. And they're pretty much con artists. They're just trying to get through Zombieland and end up in an amusement park called Pacific Playland, which is supposedly zombie free. Now, the reason why I'm bringing up Zombieland isn't necessarily because it's like my favorite horror movie ever. That's why, it's almost Halloween and stuff. But I remember, like, last weekend there was this event. Its name escapes me, but it had a really, really good lineup of horror movies. They had this one, The Sixth Sense, and The Conjuring. And because I had already reviewed The Conjuring, I figured let's review the other two as well, just for fun. And Zombieland really does kind of hold a special place in my heart because it really is, for me, the first movie to make a zombie apocalypse look really fun. I mean, we've had Shaun of the Dead before, but Shaun of the Dead got kind of sad at one point, but Zombieland really is just this full-on comedy, really. And the thing that makes it so special, in my opinion at least, is that it really does have at its core some great characters, an awesome, like, rock soundtrack, and just overall this really, really good sense of fun. When you watch Zombieland, it's undeniable that it really is more comedy than horror, but just because it's that way doesn't mean, it plays the horror stuff as a joke or anything. It still takes the horror side really seriously, and this movie actually looks just as good as any other straight up zombie horror movie. I mean, the makeup is fantastic, the blood effects are really, really suitably gruesome, and you really do have to appreciate how they went with all these real locations, especially when they get to Los Angeles and Hollywood and stuff. Like, you really see the Chinese theater, you actually see the houses of celebrities and stuff, and the destruction in this movie, it never really feels like desolate because, some of the places they go really can be kind of ridiculous. Having a zombie movie in like an amusement park, that's kind of, silly, and this movie knows it can be silly, the whole situation, so it doesn't look as dark as it probably should, but that's kind of a good thing for what this movie is going for. The cool thing about how this movie is edited also is that it's a straightforward narrative, really, but it's really broken up by lots of little flashbacks and digressions, and Columbus explaining certain rules, or zombie kill of the week, stuff like that. And you never really question how Columbus knows all this information, but you really don't care because it's so fun, and it really just builds the world that they're in. It feels like you're in like a video game world of sorts. But again, just because this movie is more of a comedy and really does not take itself seriously at all doesn't mean that it downplays the actual horror elements. And the zombie parts are actually still quite tense. This movie never forgets like the desperation of the situation, so that when zombies come out and run after people, it does get kind of, your heart starts racing. And they never really make fun of the zombies in the sense that zombies are nerfed or anything. The zombies here are still quite menacing. And I really just want to bring up the soundtrack also. The soundtrack they have here is just all like rock music, and it's awesome. It's so good. It makes things really intense, like how rock should make things. But it keeps your adrenaline pumping, but it's still it makes you feel sort of invincible in the sense, because when you're watching Tallahassee like shoot a bunch of zombies and you have like a metal song in the background, it gets you jacked up. And we really, really have to bring up the fantastic opening credit sequence that's just all extreme slow-mo, and just people running away from zombies and whatnot. And the song they use for Whom the Bell Tolls by Metallica, it's a perfect use of song, and this opening credit sequence really does kind of capture the tone of the movie while getting the initial outbreak out of the way. This movie doesn't need to resort to exposition about how this thing started and how people reacted to it. It really is all taken care of in this first sequence. Now, the plot of this movie is very, very straightforward, but it is really, really absurd also, because when you think about it, there's no way that these four characters would really trust each other so easily, but the movie really kind of shows how ridiculous a zombie apocalypse can be. The dialogue throughout the entire movie is very, very witty. I wouldn't say it's laugh out loud funny, but like it it's still, it's always fun to listen to because there's always some sort of pop culture reference or some witty double entendre going on there. And but at its core, the dialogue really is just about how these characters are all coping with the situation. Columbus is just all scared and stuff. Tallahassee is, kind of in denial about certain things, but he's just charging straight forward. Emma Stone's character is also kind of in denial about certain things, and she just wants what's best for her sister. And Abigail Breslin's character is really just kind of naive and innocent. But these characters, they're really what makes Zombieland work. They're the best part of this movie. The characters are all extremely likable, and their chemistry alone really is just worth the price of admission because a lot of this movie is just them kind of talking with each other, and you don't really notice the time pass by because it's just so fun watching these people. And that brings us to the acting. Jesse Eisenberg as Columbus, he's obviously again typecast in this role of the nerdy guy who's scared all the time. But he's typecast for a reason because he does it really well. You can really buy the fact that this guy is scared out of his mind, but you can also buy the fact that he could have survived this long because he survives this long because he doesn't, spend any time outside. He just has all these rules he follows, and he really does come across as this obsessive compulsive kind of dude, and it's really really funny. Props also to Emma Stone, who I think gives a great performance here because she really is like a con artist in this movie because she keeps putting on fronts and like fooling people and stuff, and she does this really well, but at the same time you can feel that she's repressing something deep down. And Abigail Breslin obviously doesn't get as much screen time as the other three, but they're all really just having fun. You can believe all the relationships. But in my opinion, Woody Harrelson really steals the show here as Tallahassee because he's just so cool, okay? And he's so extremely giddy about killing zombies and stuff. It's exactly how you would feel like playing a zombie video game or something like that. Even if Woody Harrelson spends most of this movie just kind of freaking out and, shooting a bunch of people, you can tell that there is emotion behind this character, and there's certain moments when he does show off his more vulnerable side, and it is kind of affecting. And it's interesting how Ruben Fleischer, the director, directed this because he directs this movie like a series of sketches. When you rewatch it, you realize it does feel like a series of sketches, but it works. It doesn't feel like super unconnected or anything. The focus is always on the characters, and the humor is really consistent. It's not really uneven in any point, really. There's a certain stretch of the movie where there's like no zombies at all, but to make up for that, they have like one of the coolest cameos in a comedy movie in a long time. So at least they made up for it that way. And what's great about Zombieland, the way this guy directs it, is that the movie ends up being both a parody and a love letter to zombie movies, and it really knows it knows when to show both the ridiculous side of the zombie apocalypse and like how awesome zombie movies can be. I do have a couple of qualms with the movie though. For one, I really do think it's just way too short. This movie is less than 90 minutes long, and I just feel like, it's kind of a compliment to say it's too short. But the more I think about it, honestly, they could have done a lot more with this premise, and I really just feel like that was kind of lacking. It really would have been nice to get more plot and more depth and more conflict out of these characters, some people might say, oh, just wait for the sequel, but, we don't know if that's gonna happen. In short, Zombieland's a really, really good movie. It really is kind of like the perfect Halloween movie if you're watching something fun with just your friends, but, it's still kind of scary at certain points. Anyway, that's my review of Zombieland. Have you guys seen it? What do you think about it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you thought, whether you agreed or not, please leave me a comment. Let's have a conversation.